Welcome, students. Welcome back to Decode Healthcare with Harshal. Let's get right to it. Today, we're diving into part 134 of our IPDRG masterclass. And honestly, this is where the rubber meets the road. This explainer is all about how we protect your hospital's hard-earned revenue when the auditors inevitably come knocking. Before we get into the heavy lifting, if you are enjoying this lesson, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and share it with friends for this free course on Decode Healthcare with Harshal. Okay, let's jump in. Last time, in part 133, we broke down Case Mix Index Optimization and MSDRG Financial Analytics. Well, today we're taking those exact concepts and building an absolute fortress around that optimized revenue. Here's our quick roadmap for this masterclass. We'll be hitting 4 main pillars. 1, the payer audit landscape. 2, the anatomy of a DRG denial. 3, our 4-step appeal process. And 4, advanced payer negotiations. Let's start with section 1, the payer audit landscape. So who's actually looking at our claims? Well, you've got recovery audit contractors, or RACs, Medicare administrative contractors, the TPE programs, and of course your commercial and Medicare Advantage auditors. They are constantly, and I mean literally constantly, scanning your claims. Basically, they're validating if that major complication you coded, say acute respiratory failure, was genuinely present on admission, or if it just lacked the clinical support to justify the bill. We are walking a pretty dangerous tightrope here. Lean too far one way into upcoding, and you're hitting massive fraud risks. We're talking False Claims Act penalties. But lean the other way into undercoding, your case mix index tanks, and legitimate revenue just bleeds out. This tightrope is especially sketchy for high-weight DRG pairs. Think sepsis with an MCC versus without, respiratory failure, heart failure, acute kidney injury. That is exactly where auditors are aggressively hunting for any hint of upcoding. Let's move on to Section 2, Anatomy on a DRG Denial. Now, when you get a denial, it usually falls into one of 3 big buckets. First up, clinical validation. This is where an auditor basically says, hey, you don't actually have the clinical evidence for this diagnosis of acute encephalopathy or severe malnutrition. Bucket number 2 is coding and sequencing errors. This is stuff like flipping the principal and secondary diagnoses or just entirely dropping CC and MCC codes. And the third bucket? Inpatient level of care denials, where they try to downgrade your inpatient stay to observation status. To actually fix a denial, we have to understand how payers found it in the first place, right? Listen to this. Payers are increasingly relying on automated machine learning algorithms. They're using proprietary criteria and super fast physician advisor reviews to instantly flag your charts and strip away those valuable CC and MCC conditions. So, our root cause analysis? It has to be just as sharp to spot the specific workflow or documentation gaps they're exploiting. It's quite literally a battle of payer algorithms versus clinical reality. All right, on to Section 3, the 4-step appeal process. Steps 1 and 2 are all about rallying the troops. You need to assemble a multidisciplinary denial defense committee. Your CDI team, coders, physician advisors, and revenue integrity folks need to collaborate instantly. Find the exact reason for the denial, and then pull absolutely every piece of the medical record, operative notes, lab trends, POA indicators, everything you need to build an airtight case justifying that admission. Now, for steps 3 and 4, it's all about execution. You're drafting a highly structured appeal letter and managing some seriously rigid submission deadlines. You absolutely have to log your appeal reference numbers and deadlines in a centralized dashboard. Because look, if you miss a deadline, you forfeit the revenue, period. It doesn't matter how brilliant your clinical case is, the window just closes. So what does a winning appeal letter actually look like? Well, your clinical facts and your coding rationale must be perfectly synchronized. This means you need to explicitly cite official ICD-10-CM coding guidelines or coding clinic advice. And you have to defend the medicine using gold standard criteria. Think sepsis 2 or 3, ASPN criteria for malnutrition, or KDIGO guidelines for AKI. You then tie that gold standard directly back to your patient's specific lab trends, vitals, nursing flow sheets, and the physician's documented treatment plan. Let's look at a real-world scenario to put this in perspective. Say you have a patient who undergoes a CABG, and they end up developing post-op acute kidney injury. The algorithm automatically denies the original claim, citing insufficient documentation, and boom, your reimbursement drops. But wait, your CDI query confirms that the lab results and nephrology notes flawlessly support the AKI. So you resubmit the updated claim with the complete clinical evidence, and it gets approved with the MCC, securing the higher reimbursement your hospital rightfully earned. That is how it's done. Moving right along to Section 4, Advanced Payer Negotiations. What happens if your Level 1 redetermination with the MAC fails? Well, you escalate. You really have to master the 5-level Medicare appeals hierarchy. After Level 1, you move to Level 2, which is a reconsideration by a qualified independent contractor. Then Level 3 is an administrative law judge hearing. Level 4 goes to the Medicare Appeals Council, and finally, Level 5 is Federal District Court judicial review. For commercial payers, it's a bit different. This might mean aggressive peer-to-peer discussions, contractual dispute escalation, or bringing in an external independent review. To win at these advanced levels, you've got to leave your emotions completely at the door. You need to provide comprehensive, indisputable evidence of clinical necessity, highlighting your strict compliance with CMS guidelines. Get your physicians ready with peer-to-peer cheat sheets, and behind the scenes, use your data analytics to track your auditor overturn win rates by specific payers. That is exactly how you expose their bias denial trends. Keep in mind, the clock is always ticking. You've got a strict 30 to 60-day window for those initial appeals from the date of denial. If you have to escalate up the chain to a medical director, that takes an additional 30 to 45 days. Tracking every single stage is absolutely crucial so you don't end up forfeiting in rights on a silly technicality. Let's wrap up with a summary and our next steps. Here's the core blueprint to take away. RAC and MAC audits are primarily gunning for upcoding and medical necessity. Your absolute best defense is a highly structured appeal letter backed by irrefutable clinical documentation. You can't do this in a silo. It requires seamless collaboration across your multidisciplinary defense committee. And when you hit a wall, escalate professionally up the hierarchy to get that revenue back. Now, next time, we are taking the gloves off. Make sure you're ready for Part 135, which is our clinical validation deep dive. We are going to break down the exact defense strategies for the absolute most heavily targeted conditions out there, sepsis, encephalopathy, and severe malnutrition. You really won't want to miss learning how to protect the specific high-weight DRG pairs. Thank you all so much for your incredible focus today. Make sure you spend some time studying those provided cheat sheets. If you are enjoying this lesson, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and share it with friends for this free course on Decode Healthcare with Harshal. But before we officially sign off, I want you to ask yourself this. When those AI algorithms target your hospital's highest paying claim tomorrow morning, is your clinical defense actually ready for the fight? Think about it. I'll see you in the next masterclass.